All right, so this is a recording for the perspective question for IGCSE, the code 0500. This paper is also going to be linked in the description, but it's 0500 and the code is 11, right? And it's May, June 2024. It's a 2-hour paper and I will be solving question number 3 here, right? Which is what I like to call the perspective question. All right, so in the perspective question, you will start off by rereading text, right? Riding the rails, learning how to drive a dog sled in the insert, and then answer question number 3 on this question paper. You are Mike, the ultimate experience travel company, which advertises your expedition, has seen Lynn Marshall's article reviewing her holiday in Alaska and has some concerns about the expedition and about using dogs to pull sled. The company has asked you for a formal report. In your report, you should explain exactly what happened during the evening exploration and the measures you take to ensure the safety and comfort of tourists. Remind the company of the different things tourists enjoy about the holiday offer and why. Reassure the company that its various concerns about using dogs to pull sleds are unfounded. Explain why you think that this form of transport is important to protect. Write the words of the report. Write about 250 to 350 words. For you guys who are attempting this paper, I would always prefer writing more than 300 words. 250 is just too less for this. 300 should be your minimum word count, and maybe you can go up to 350. Up to 15 marks are available for the content of your answer and up to 10 marks for the quality of your writing. So that's a total 25 mark question. Okay, so we will read the insert now. In your case, you would have already read it to answer question number 2, part D, right? But we will be reading it right now for the first time and understanding it a little bit. And then we'll come back to this. Okay. Now, one thing to remember about the perspective question, which is question number 3, is that it's not always going to be from the perspective of the main character in the insert, right? They could ask you to answer from the perspective of somebody who's a side character in the story as well, right? So you have to pick out points that that person would think of or that person would answer, right? So let's start. Lexi is riding the rails, learning how to drive a dog sled. In this article, journalist Lynn Marshall looks back at her adventure holiday in Alaska, right? So this is actually the from the perspective of this journalist gal, right, who's looking back at her adventure holiday in Alaska. But you have to answer from the perspective of Mark, who actually owns that place where she is having her holiday. All right, but the article is from her perspective. As the sky gradually turned indigo in the fading light, the scraping of ice and frantic, unheeded commands to my sled dog team broke the stillness. Thundering down the frozen waterway, I snatched anxious glimpses over my shoulder. Where was Mike, my guide? So again, Mike is the guy we are going to be answering as. Would his tracker still pick up my signal with the gap between us increasing by the minute? Out exploring that Friday evening, an irresistible scent had wafted by my lead dog's keen nose. Following primal instincts over my feeble instructions, he had wheeled around, leading his obliging pack in the opposite direction at full speed. Applying all my weight to the hook, brake saved me from fishtailing wildly from side to side, but did nothing to slow the dog's enthusiastic charge. So, what I usually recommend students do at this point is make small notes of what is going on in each paragraph so that you can just digest the insert in a slow manner, right? So, for example, in the first one, what's going on is that this lady is on a sled, right? And the sled is being driven by dogs, right? Usually, it's driven by and honestly, I don't know what it's usually driven by, maybe horses, but that's carriages, right? But in this case, it's the dogs that are driving forward this sled, right? And all of a sudden, they kind of go out of control because one of the dogs he catches some scent, right? He smells something. So even though he's a trained dog, he's like trained to do this. Goes off track, and because of him, the other dogs also go off track. So the lady on the sled is now fishtailing like left and right, and she's basically, trying to save herself. So what she does is to prevent from going side to side, she applies the hook brake, right? Which kind of helps her steady herself. But the dogs are still going on in the direction of the scent that they got, right? So that's what's going on so far. And this is her on the holiday in Alaska. For my evening chats with Mike, so Mike is again the person who owns this place, who basically manages this place. Over the last few days, I knew that if we lost each other entirely, I was in trouble, right? So she had been obviously talking to the guide, the owner there, before starting the expedition. And she knew that if she loses the tour guide, she's going to be in trouble, right? I had nothing, no extra clothing, no shelter, but more importantly, nothing to start a fire. We'd seen wolf tracks regularly, so fire seemed particularly important to me at that, right? So she kind of goes back in time and remembers that it's really important that she keeps in touch with her tour guide. But for now, he's nowhere to be found. And she is being driven by the dogs into the unknown, right? They're off track. It was March, the tail end of the long, cold winter. Roads were closed, rivers were frozen, and access into the region was limited. So again, she's going back in time. When she came here, what she saw, etc. Still spellbound from gazing at the enormity of the Alaskan wilderness, I stepped down from the pale plain into the miniature perfection of Eagle, a fascinating history-packed hamlet of timber dwellings, home to just 85 residents. So she's basically giving you a description of the place where she's at, right? In Alaska, it's called Eagle. It's a really small, like a hotel, but made of timber, wood, and it's home to just 85 residents. I was immediately wrapped in the customary bear hug by Mike's wife, Scarlett, and cocooned in layers of Arctic grade outerwear. So again, they're very hospitable, Mike and his wife, Scarlett. They're very hospitable. They're very nice. Mike and Scarlett live sustainably, hunting, fishing, and gathering, consciously leaving a minimal carbon footprint. So they're very environmentally friendly. They've enjoyed many years of wilderness expeditions using traditional dog sleds and now provide opportunities for adventurous souls to experience their eco lifestyle firsthand. Driving a dog sled is harder than it looks. As Mike's passenger, I realized it involved constant corrective maneuvers, anticipating the dog team's next move. They only ever do what they want to, and possible camber, tilt in the trail. So she did see Mike actually, drive the dog sled, or she did herself. And it involves, it's very complex. It's a complex task, right? You have to constantly correct the direction of the dogs because they have a tendency to go off track, right? You can't really anticipate their next move, right? In her unfortunate case, they caught the scent of something and they went into that direction altogether. In theory lessons, Mike's diagrams emphasize the ice highway can be anything from porcelain smooth to oversized ice cubes. Slam into one of those and you'd need your emergency messaging device. But winding through spruce forest, tracing soft snow-covered lines is a precious delight. Crossing a small lake's glassy surface, I look down to see exquisite designs, crystal bubbles of all shapes and sizes suspended in time, cascading into the dark depths. So what we see here is that the preparatory measures that Mike gave to the tourist before he actually let her go onto the expedition, right? So he gave her theory lessons, right? So this is what you can expect. This is the kind of ice you can expect because obviously the sled is going on a the sledge is going on an ice path, right? It's frozen. It's Alaska, obviously, right? Um, and so he's been really thorough with it. Right? He told her to expect either a porcelain smooth kind of track or oversized ice cubes, so really frozen water, right? And if she slams into one of those, she's going to need her emergency messaging device. So they have taken certain precautions, right? So they've given her emergency messaging device, and then he's also giving her theory lessons. So she's prepared for the worst, basically. Um, right, where were we? cascading into the dark depths. There were, of course, many thrills and spills. Losing control on one adrenaline charged downhill run, I tipped sideways onto the snow. My happy yappy team continued on, their inept operator hanging on single handedly, thankful for the padded trousers provided. Each evening, we settled in at a different location, often an old miner's cabin, where our teams were secured and cared for. The teams are your lifeline, your escape route, so their health and well being are paramount. Only after this did we collect snow for our water and cut firewood. So it's an expedition, right? So they're going from place to place. Um, and so their teams are their lifeline. So they make sure that they're well taken care of. Um, and that obviously includes the people and the dogs, right? Because they're also the team. And then they would collect snow to drink water and then cut firewood for fire. The most memorable night, using only nature's materials, we shoveled and hacked, creating a shelter against the sub-zero temperature. A reflective wall of logs through the pit fire's heat under our makeshift roof, as Mike spoke with passion about life out here, the joy of relative freedom, and aurora borealis in the night skies, that were nature's artwork, a ceiling of stars on dark nights, or flooded with rippling emerald green curtains. As I burrowed down for the night, fire crackling in the stillness, the howling of wolves drifted to us. It was a moment of complete and utter contentment. This is like a snapshot memory that she made, and then she zoomed in on it and gave us details of it. And, this is what the sky looked like. The aurora borealis, I think it's something like the northern lights, but slightly different. Um, and then, yeah, she's just narrating her feelings, the noises she's hearing, so fire crackling, the howling of wolves, right? So she's giving you like her snapshot memory. This is what she felt, this is what she saw. It's similar to when you have a very precious memory, it stays kind of embedded in your mind. It's like you took a picture with your mind, right? Um, right. So exactly how far I traveled through the twilight with my errant team, I'll never know. Our detour didn't have a dramatic end in the fangs of a wolf pack. Only when fatigued did the team slow gliding to a halt, with Mike rounding the bend sometime later to locate me, right? So coming back to what that event where the dogs went off track, right? So she didn't end up in the hands of wolves, right? Nothing very bad really happened. But the dogs only slowed down when they were really tired, and then Mike came around and he found her and then probably took her to safety. Right. So now that we have read the insert, let's take a pause. All right. So back to the question. Now that you've read the insert, the first thing you're going to do is, in your case, you would have already read the inserts. You will just be doing this directly when you see this question. Um, there is something called the PAFTS method, which is purpose, audience, format, tone, and then stance, right? So the stance is the position you are taking on this subject matter, right? Sometimes you don't have to come up with a stance. The stance is already given for you. And this is one of those cases where the stance is given for you, right? So we're going to do this for this question. I've actually already answered this question, so I'll just open it here. Hmm, right. So again, you are Mike, the ultimate experience travel company, which advertises your expedition, has seen Lynn Marshall's article reviewing her holiday in Alaska, and has some concerns about the expedition and about using dogs to pull sleds. The company has asked you for a formal report, right? So the company basically advertises your expedition, right? And they're a bit worried that after reading Lynn Marshall's article, that maybe the dog sleds are not the safest uh, option, right? As a means of transport. And so they basically want you to give a formal report explaining what happened and whether these dog sleds are really feasible. So in your report, you should explain exactly what happened during the evening exploration, and the measures you take to ensure the safety and comfort of tourists, right? So both of those things. Remind the company of the different things tourists enjoy about the holiday you offer and why. Reassure the company that its various concerns about using dogs to pull sleds are unfounded and explain why you think that this form of transport is important to protect. Right? So in this case, it's pretty obvious that your stance is already given. They want you to defend the use of dog sleds. They want to be able to use the dog sleds, right? So we will be going with that. And it's a report. The format is going to be a report, and it's obviously a formal report. 250 to 350 words to 300 words minimum for you guys and up to 350. Okay, so the purpose is to write a report to the Ultimate Experience Travel Company explaining that the expeditions are safe overall and that there are no dangers of having the sleds pulled by the dogs, right? Because that is the concern that they have, you know? Because obviously, if they're advertising your company and you are posing a danger to the tourists, it's also going to reflect badly on the company advertising, right? So they want you to kind of give a reassurance. They want you to reassure them that it's all good, that there's no harm happening, right? So the audience is obviously the ultimate experience travel company owners. The format is a report. That's a formal report. Tone is persuasive, polite, informative. The stance is already given. So you have to reassure the company owners that the dogs are completely safe and do not pose a hazard to the tourists, right? So you haven't really been given an option. You have to defend the dog sleds, right? So sometimes in this question, you do get an option. You can pick, either to go with something or go against it. In this case, the stance, the position you're taking on it is already established. Explain exactly what happened during the evening explorations and the measures you take to ensure the safety and comfort of tourists. So these are some points that I took out from the text, right? So you are Mike now. You're answering as Mike, right? And you have picked out these points from the text too, and you actually learn with a single N. Okay. So exactly what happened was that so these are all explicit points. Explicit points are points that you're going to pick out from the passage. This is what you guys will also do. So you will pick out explicit points and you will make a list like this. So the Sled Dog team stop listening to the tourist and Marshall. The tourists save themselves from swinging too much by applying the hook brake. Tourists step sideways onto the snow. So actually, this is wrong. This didn't really happen at this point. This happened in a different event. Um, so here, what happened was that the tourists eventually the dogs eventually got exhausted. It was called my um, right. So that's what happened. Now, this answers this part. Explain exactly what happened during the evening exploration. So these things happened, right? And these are from the text. I took them out from the text, right? And then what measures you take to ensure the safety and comfort of tourists. So these were the things in the text details. Here, let's explain to the tourists what can happen, right? Obviously, a catastrophic level, how bad, right? Emergency phone, friendly support, or supervision. So these are all the things that some of the things that she is provided with to ensure that she's safe, right? And they were even padded trousers, right? So that's also a protective. So the same way, you guys will make this plan after you're done with the PAFTS. The first thing, after you do this, you will do this. This is still the planning stage, right? Then remind the company of the different things tourists enjoy about the holiday you offer and why, right? Now, obviously, you are defending your company, right? You're saying that it's a good company, it's enjoyable, people like it, right? Um, so you are telling the advertising company that, this is what tourists enjoy about it and this is why they enjoy it. So these were some of the things again from the text. Remember that nothing at this point is going to come from you or from your brain. It's going to be entirely from the text. This is all from the insert. None of your creativity is needed at this point. Natural beauty of the Alaskan wilderness. So this is what tourists enjoy. The miniature perfection of Eagle, a fascinating history-packed hamlet of timber dwellings, home to just 85 residents. The hospitality of Mark and his wife. I later realized it was actually Mike, it's not. Experiencing the eco lifestyle firsthand, especially preferable for adventurous souls, experiencing nature to its fullest, right? So Lynn particularly talks about this night. But again, remember, this is generally about what tourists enjoy. So we're just going to pick out the points that Lynn made and generalize them for all the other tourists as well. All right? We're not going to say Lynn like this and Lynn like that because this is Mike speaking and he's speaking on the behalf of all tourists. Reassure the company that its various concerns about using dogs to pull sleds are unfounded and explain why you think that this form of transport is important to protect. So now the reason you're writing the report, that you are going to defend the use of dog sleds, right? You're going to reassure the company. You're going to kind of convince them, persuade them that the dog sleds are not something problematic. That the sleds being driven by dogs, particularly, is not something that's dangerous. It's fine, right? So I explained why you think that this form of transport is important to protect, and this is all for. I gave it 100 words. Quintessential nature experience or natural experience, traditional form of transport, right? It's the traditional form of transport, environmentally friendly mode of travel. The dogs are also well cared for. So these are all reasons, and they're well trained. These are all reasons why they should be allowed to continue the use of dog sleds. Okay, so this is the format of a report. You start with to from date, you leave a line subject, you leave a line salutations, and you leave a line after each paragraph, right? Also, when you're writing, it's a really good way to just paragraph it this way instead of this, which is what some students do. Hold on, it's right. Students do this, right? Now, visually, this is not that appealing, right? It looks a bit muddled up. So instead, just do this, all right? Block paragraphing is what this is. So we're going to read the response now. So this is the planning that you guys are also going to do. So 5 points for each, or 4 to 5 points for each, are good enough. These are all explicit points in the paragraph. And now what you're going to do is, it's a good idea to kind of allot the word count that you're going to give to each paragraph. But if you don't want to do that, just know which of these, you know, subheadings you want to give the most words to, which ones you want to give the second most words to, and which one you want to give the least words to. So I think I gave the most words to the first paragraph, right? This one. Then the second most words to this here, and then the least words to this, right? But visually, they need to look balanced out. It shouldn't be such that you have 2 lines for the first paragraph and 50 lines for the next one. They need to look balanced out, all right? And then be very careful of the word count as well. So 300 to 350 words, that is what your word count is. Let's start. So to Mr. Jack, CEO of the Ultimate Experience Travel Company, from Mark, right? It's actually Mike. Mike didn't have a surname, so I gave him the surname of the right biscuit. And then the date is 28 December 2024. Subject is report regarding safety measures for tourist expeditions. Respected sir, I'm writing to you after receiving your request to submit a report addressing some concerns regarding the safety of tourists and the plausibility of employing dogs to pull sleds at our expedition. Now, this is a very, if I dare say so myself, it's a really good beginning paragraph, right? And the reason for that is, sorry, topic sentence, not beginning paragraph. The reason for that is that it establishes really clearly what the report is about, especially because this is a formal piece of writing. You go straight to the point, right? So I'm writing to you after receiving your request to submit a report addressing some concerns regarding the safety of tourists and the plausibility of employing dogs to pull sleds at expeditions, right? It's a pretty somber topic. It's a pretty serious topic, right? So we go straight to the point. Let me first delineate the events of the evening when Miss Lynn Marshall had to experience discomfort of being thrown off track by her dog's sled, thankfully with no harm except the initial shock of the dogs going their own. After being thrown off the trail after one of the dogs pulling the sled caught a scent, Miss Lynn aptly pulled the hook brake as she had practiced, right? So I included as she had practiced to indicate that it was Mike who actually trained her, in case something happens for you to. So they were prepared. The enthusiastic dogs came to a halt once they were tired, and I soon found Miss Lynn and took her to a nearby shelter to recuperate. Recuperate means to, revitalize yourself or to get better rest, etc. It is for such anomalous cases. So anomalous means the exception, odd cases. Okay, so this is the spelling, anomalous cases. That we have rigorous theory lessons, constant supervision, and emergency phones for tourists. Prevention, we believe, is better than cure. So, very important thing at this point is this is what we wrote about, right? Remind the company of the different things tourists, sorry, explain exactly what happened during the evening exploration and the measures you take to ensure the safety and comfort of tourists. And something very important at this point is, which I did not mention here, is that now you have to do some implicit development. What that means is, so they already gave you these points, right? They already gave you explicit points from the text and you picked them out, right? And you're answering from the perspective of Mike. But now you have to develop these points further, right? Now, this is a very, very important part of this question because this is the thing that has to come from you directly. So make sure that when you are writing your explicit points, you develop them, you take them a step further as well. So, for example, so here we just talked about how she was, thrown off track by her dog sled, and this is a sort of a development that I did, thankfully with no harm except the initial shock of the dogs going their own way. Right. So this is I took it a step forward. Um, then this is also a little bit of a development. So the enthusiastic dogs came to halt once they were tired, and I soon found Miss Lynn and took her to a nearby shelter to recuperate. So obviously this is something that Mike would say, but it's not mentioned in the text, right? Which doesn't mean that Mike is lying. It just means that I added this development, right? Because I am Mike writing this. It is for such, okay, now this is all from the text. Again, these are the mechanisms that we found from the text. So they have rigorous theory lessons, constant supervision, emergency phones. Now, this is some development I did on my own. Prevention, we believe, is better than cure, right? So to add little things like this that take your explicit point, that thing from the text, a step forward, right? All right, next. As you know, our expeditions have become increasingly popular this year. So this is the one about what tourists like about your about the holiday you offer and why they like it, right? So again, these are the explicit points, and now we will look at how I have implicitly developed them as well. So let's see the topic sentence here. As you know, our expeditions have become increasingly popular this year, drawing attention from names like Miss Lynn Marshall herself. So Lynn Marshall is the famous journalist, right? And this is an okay topic sentence, right? So topic sentence is a sentence that you start your paragraph with. It's kind of like the trailer of your paragraph, which is why it's very important that you do a really good job with the topic sentence. Okay. One of the reasons for this is the picturesque Alaskan wilderness that satiates any adventurer's wanderlust, right? So this is the explicit point from the text that people like the Alaskan wilderness, and this is the implicit development. So I took it a step forward. It's a site for adventurers, right? It satiates their wanderlust, their urge to travel, right? Secondly, so the second attraction for the tourist, Eagle, a small abode, humble timber dwellings, is a spectacle to behold for all the incoming residents. It is a guaranteed break from the tall and crowded urban buildings, right? So explicit point, Eagle, right? That place, the hotel type place where they live. And this is the implicit development that it is a guaranteed break from the tall and crowded urban buildings, right? Because it's actually a very natural place made of timber. Never once have we had a spot empty out of the limited 85, right? So it's always full, is what Mike is saying, right? Obviously, Mike would say that, right? Tourists particularly enjoy our practices of hospitality and the eco-friendly lifestyle we offer too. Now, this is from the text, explicit development, and this is my implicit development. Teaching them how to keep our environment safe is part of our expedition. Lastly, I wish to reassure you that dog sleds pose no danger to tourists. So again, very clear topic sentence. Now we are corroborating why any fears about the dog sleds are unfounded. They are not true. They should not be fearing anything about the sleds being driven by dogs, right? So that was a topic sentence. Even in rare cases where a tourist is at the risk of injury, the aforementioned safety precautions offer a safety net, right? Moreover, the dog sleds are a unique selling point of our travel experience and a quintessential part of it too, right? It's a unique thing that the sleds are driven by dogs. So people, would want to come here just for them. It's a unique selling point. Those of you who, it's a business term. Those of you who understand business terminology, it means that it's a thing that stands out, right? Of our travel experience and a quintessential part of it too. Tourists are always keen on enjoying the environmentally friendly ride. Not to mention the happy yapping of the dog spreads contagious joy that cannot be mimicked otherwise. They're also well cared for. And to further convince you, I would love to have you over next week as we commence our next expedition. Yours sincerely, Margaret. Right, so that is a report. Um, and yes, there you have it. Notice how I have used implicit developments wherever I could. So this is an implicit development again. This is an implicit development. I literally invited the person over to come and experience it himself, right? To really convince him that it's safe and the topic sentences are well established. The structure is proper. The format has been adhered to. I have used a variety of punctuations. You can see that I've used the semicolon here. I have used, I also use exclamation marks, right? Um, I use transitional devices as well, the last three. There's a comma as well. There's single quotation marks as well. You can do these things. It's also good to um, vary your long and short sentences. So don't just have really long sentences. I'm guilty of that. But you know, have medium length sentences and then short sentences, not very, very long sentences, which I call run-on sentences. They should not be part of your writing. So that's pretty much it for the perspective question. And uh, you can also practice this on your own now if you want to after watching this.